Hi there, I'm Laura. Welcome to my channel, Aquamarine18, for my second video of the day and my second response to top 5 decks I can't live without, a video started by Kelly Bear a number of years ago and now being resuscitated to share new decks that we can't live without. So I've posted a video on top 5 tarot decks I can't live without, which is what Kelly shared in her video and in her initial video. I'll link my tarot video below. But I wanted to make a second video on oracles. For me, they're very, very separate from tarot. I can't really put them, I couldn't put them on one list to think in terms of top 5 because I work with them very differently. I think of them very differently. So I wanted to talk about them separately. And this was a lot easier for me to come up with, I must say. My collection of oracles is much smaller than my collection of tarot, which isn't actually that big at all. And it's harder for me to really bond with and really get into working with oracle decks. I really like them, but I guess you could say I'm pickier. A lot of oracles just don't work for me. That's totally fine. But I do have a few that I would like to share as ones that I really would not want to live without. Top 5 oracles. So a couple of caveats in making this list. I shared a few caveats about the last list too. A few caveats about this list would be you'll see that I have not included any Lenormand. I have one Lenormand deck that I very much would not want to live without, but I haven't really learned Lenormand yet, so I don't feel like I can really say I couldn't possibly live without Lenormand. I can imagine myself getting there to that point, but I'm not there now. I also have not included any playing card decks, with the assumption that whatever scenario this is, that I can only have five things, to not live without, and I have to just choose 5. I'm assuming that whatever this situation, whatever this world is, will have playing cards in it, so I just didn't include one of those. I do have a few playing card decks that I use for not gameplay purposes. So I've chosen 5 oracles, and I'll start, and again, these are not in order of preference or anything like that, just 5 that I wouldn't want to live without. And so I'll share the first one I'll share because it's the only thing in the 5. It's the only oracle in the 5 that is not an oracle deck. So the first that I wouldn't want to live without is one that I absolutely love, and I haven't talked about this on the channel before, but it's Elemental Divination, a dice oracle by Stephen Ball. And so this is a book. In a way, this is bibliomancy, really, because the way that it operates is rolling a number of dice, and I have a bag that has different die in it that I use. The ones that I have, these for different kind of purposes, I guess. These I have 4 dice in the colors I associate with the elements, which I'm also going to use when I start to learn geomancy. And I have die in the shapes of the platonic solids, which are also elementally associated. And then I just have some black ones with white pips, and I have some clear with black pips. And there's a black pouch inside there that has some crystals in it as well. So basically the dice oracle, you roll a number of dice, and the different numbers of pips on the different sides represent a different element. And so of course there's 6 sides on a standard dice. And so in addition to earth, wind, fire, and air, Stephen Ball has also included sun and moon as kind of elemental forces. And the book explains what he means and his associations for each of the elements. And elemental associations are something that I work with really strongly when I work with tarot or oracle or spiritual practice in general. So this really works for me. And what the book outlines is all of the different kind of combinations of elements you can get if you roll two different elements and then a third dice to indicate which of those 2 elements is the one that's coming in, which of them is the existing one. So it's premised on this idea that there's an elemental energy, a new element comes in, maybe it's the same element, or a new element comes in, and it's either greater or weaker than the element that's already there. and so what that interaction looks like, right? So for example, you get greater air over earth, so a strong air force coming in where earth was the present element before, and so greater air over earth he calls the shaking house, bringing freedom to a stagnant situation. Greater moon over earth, the howling wolf, wild freedom, ecstasy, joy, adrenaline, escape from normality, powerful magic. And there's just kind of 2 pages or so for each combination. And once you're familiar with the kind of system, I guess, of elements that he's working with, you could start to just use the dice and work without the book if you wanted to. If you have elemental associations that you work with, you could certainly kind of think about what does it mean for strong fire to come in to a watery situation, for example, right? And just read that way intuitively. But I really love the book. It's really poetically written. It's beautifully written. I love reading it. So absolutely the Elemental Divination Dice Oracle by Stephen Ball, and the dice that I have to go with it is an oracle that I would not want to live without. The second oracle deck that I chose, which I have in this bag, some of you will recognize from my video on bags that I've made, is actually the first oracle deck I ever had, and is still one of the favorites and one that I wouldn't want to live without, which is the Earthbound Oracle, a 50-card oracle divination deck by A.L. Swartz. And this is the same creator that folks will know of the Wooden Tarot and a Lenormand deck as well, which I don't have either of those. And it's a nature-based oracle in a small size. I like this deck because it feels elemental, it feels balanced. The words on each card are straightforward enough that you don't need a guidebook, but large and accommodating enough that, you know, there's a lot of interpretation involved. You could read this deck in spreads, or you could just have it as a keyword, a follow-up to a reading. And I really, really love this deck. I will say that there are a couple of cards that I don't use in this deck that just don't work for me, specifically luck, showing a rabbit's foot. I just can't see any luck for the rabbit in that situation. So that card, I can't associate luck with that imagery. I know a lot of folks do and can, but I can't, so I leave that one out. And also, some will know that I really don't like the multiple eyes. I react quite viscerally to the multiple eyes, so I don't usually have that card in. So I read it as a 48 card oracle, but it is a deck that I've really found nothing else like, and that I would not want to live without. So it's the second one. The third deck that I would not want to live without, that is an oracle deck, is the Compendium of Constellations 90 Cosmic Card Oracle Deck by Claire Goodchild of Black and the Moon. And Claire Goodchild has created a number of decks that many will probably be familiar with. I have another oracle deck of hers called the, what is it called? Arcana of Astrology oracle deck, which I don't actually use as an oracle deck. I use it to just display on my table the moon phases, or, you know, there's a card for lunar eclipse, solar eclipse, things like this, but I don't shuffle and read with it. This one I do. And I just think that these are so incredibly beautiful. The backs are nice. They're a quite, you know, plain, textured looking back, which I like. And the keywords are all constellations, and the imagery shows the constellation on each card, if we can focus. And so there's just one keyword for each constellation. And this deck doesn't come with a guidebook, but what I've done is read it alongside a book that I bought on the constellations that shares a little bit about how each one got its name. And those names go along with the keywords quite well, I'm finding. And this deck just looks beautiful alongside anything else you put it with. There's so many cards. I love a really big, like, it's a big chunky deck. 90 cards. This might be the biggest deck that I have, actually. It is definitely the biggest deck that I have. Love that. Can't live without the Compendium of Constellations Oracle card deck. Now, folks will know who have followed my channel that in terms of Oracle decks, I love animal focused. I could have made a top 5 on animal Oracle decks alone, but I chose to try to be a little bit broader than that. And so there were inevitably going to be some animal energy in this top 5. And so I chose for my animal deck that I don't want to live without, the Animal Allies Oracle cards, an uplifting 60 card deck. And this deck is by Jessica Swift. It comes with a little fold out of keywords for each animal, which I do not use. I just use the associations that I already have. And I love the painting style of the imagery on this deck. I love the variety of animals chosen in this deck. I love the colors. And I love that there are not keywords or paragraphs, because I find sometimes with animal decks, I do have some with keywords and paragraphs that I really like. But a lot of them, if the keywords jar with my own association with particular animals, I find it really, really distracting, which is why I don't work with the pamphlet. So I like that there's just nothing but the animal there. So to have an animal themed deck, this is the deck that I would pick, the Animal Allies by Jessica Swift. Now, finally, and this one, you know, for my tarot video, I talked about only including decks that I've worked with for quite some time, that I have really strong relationships with, that I, you know, feel profoundly connected to. But in the case of the Oracle cards, a deck that is brand new to me just in the last 2 months has unquestionably made it into my top 5 oracles that I could not live without. And that's the Saltwater reading cards by Laura Bowen. This deck I found via Katie Flowers. It's by a Indigenous artist who's Indigenous to Australia. And it has a saltwater ocean life theme. So it's not quite an animal deck, because there are some other things in here, I think, like seaweed and things like that, but shells. I love this deck. I love the messages in the guidebook. I think the artwork is beautiful. I love the colors. I love the keywords. And this deck is one that will be a favorite for years to come, I have no doubt. I cannot believe how quickly I have connected with this deck, particularly given that unlike tarot, which I feel very connected to the system, Oracle decks for me can be a real struggle. And occasionally I have, you know, acquired some Oracle decks that I thought would work for me that ended up not really working for me so well. It's harder for me to think of Oracle decks that I really feel like, yes, you know, I feel a kind of spirit, kind of soul connection with this. But some of these, especially the Elemental Divination Dice Oracle and this one, I really feel that I would not want to live without these, the Saltwater reading cards. And there's the back. I may do a review of this deck, I'm not sure. I'm sure there are other reviews. It's a deck, it's not a new deck. It's just new to me. So that's 5. My top 5 oracles that I wouldn't want to live without are the Elemental Divination Dice Oracle, the Compendium of Constellations Oracle deck, the Earthbound Oracle deck, the Animal Allies, and the Saltwater reading cards. So if you want to share your top 5 oracle decks, or oracles, I guess, because the dice isn't a deck. If you want to share your top 5 oracles or any kind of 5 divination tools that you couldn't live without, in the comments below, if you don't make videos, feel free. Thanks for watching and have a great day.